Hungary identifies the EU's true enemy. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has suggested that if the bloc wishes to engage in a conflict, it should combat inflation. Orban argued that Western sanctions on Russia have not resolved the conflict in Ukraine, but instead have wreaked havoc on the European economy and led to increased inflation. In a Facebook post on Sunday, Orban criticized the EU's sanctions and claimed that the bloc is struggling to combat inflation as a result of the energy sector restrictions introduced by Brussels. The disease is inflation, and the virus is the Brussels sanctions, he stated. Orban characterized the sanctions as weapons of Brussels' war policy, stating that while the EU employs this approach to target Russia, it has instead harmed itself. The Prime Minister asserted that Brussels previously promised that the sanctions would bring an end to the war, but after a year, the war's conclusion is further away. Orban noted that while EU officials pledged that the sanctions would not extend to the energy sector, they ultimately did so, driving natural gas prices to record levels. He added that gas prices partly determine the cost of electricity and that the rise in gas prices is immediately followed by an increase in the price of electricity, even if the electricity was not generated using gas turbines. Orban contended that, if Brussels wants to go to war, it should combat inflation. It doesn't, and that Hungarian authorities are working to safeguard families and companies from the economic consequences. Hungary, a country heavily reliant on Russian energy, has opposed the EU's sanctions on Moscow since its military operation in Ukraine began in February 2022. Budapest maintains that the restrictions have failed to meaningfully weaken Russia while damaging the European economy. Orban also indicated in late January that Hungary would veto any EU sanctions aimed at Russia's nuclear energy sector. Budapest has also opposed the bloc's plans to prohibit oil and gas imports from Russia, receiving numerous exceptions to procure fossil fuels from the country.